Colby Volke is a retired Marine Corps judge, advocate, and military law expert. We appreciate you being here with us.
My pleasure.
With us tonight. I know you've been following this entire time. You know, it didn't take the panel very long at all to come back with this guilty verdict. Do you think that the next phase of this, the punishment phase, do you think that's going to take a bit longer, more discussions?
It could. One thing we know with Major Hasan is we never know exactly what's going to happen. He could either sit there and say nothing himself during sentencing and allow it to happen, or this could be the opportunity for him to stand up and say what he's been wanting to say the whole trial.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people expect, especially because he didn't speak in court. Not really, not yet.
No, and he'll be allowed to say a lot more now than he was during the during the merits portion of the trial, because he's allowed to present evidence in extenuation and mitigation.
There is this automatic appeals process, so we know that's going to kick in. What is the process, and what are we talking about timeline-wise? How long is all this going to take?
Appeals process, we're talking years, because anytime you have a death penalty, they're going to exhaust every possible appeal that's out there.
Does the fact that he was his own attorney during the trial, is that going to play in, do you think, in the appeal?
It could, but the judge has done a pretty good job of making sure every one of his rights has been exercised, that he hasn't been deprived of anything during the trial. She's done an exceptional job of kind of keeping the trial on track. So I don't think it's going to have that huge a portion to play in the appeals process. Well,
she has been interesting to watch, because you're right. She has kept things exactly, and not that it always isn't that way, but there's been really no leniency at all in this.
No, it's been a fair proceeding.
Right.
But she doesn't allow any nonsense to go on in the courtroom.
Right.
So it's a pretty good mix. She's a phenomenal judge.
So you called him Major Hasan. When do we drop the major in all this? And when does he stop getting a paycheck?
Well, after the conviction, depending on what the sentence is, assuming he either gets a death penalty or a whole lot of time in jail.
Right, because he's guilty. That's it. There's no changing
that. He is guilty.
Okay.
So there's a mandatory minimum, at least, of a life sentence, because he's been guilty of premeditated murder. So his pay will stop very, very soon thereafter, after the sentencing starts. The major will be with him. Officers are never reduced at courts-martial, so he'll remain a major, but no one will ever address him as major again. And he won't receive the pay of a major. He won't receive any pay.
That can never be stripped away from him?
No, it's not the way it's done with officers.
Okay.
They're just not reduced like that.
Because I tell you, that's one thing that so many viewers call about, is because we do say Major Nadal Hasan. They're like, stop calling him that. But yes, I guess at some point, especially now, we can just stop calling him. We're glad to hear that the paycheck won't be coming to him. Do you think there's much of a difference when it comes to a military panel versus a civilian panel in giving the death penalty? I tend to think that there is, meaning the military panel might more easily give a death penalty, and I don't know why I think that. I guess that's
I think that's true. Now we have a very educated jury when you're talking about with the military members panel.
Right.
Everyone's a college graduate. A lot of them with postgraduates. They're a very educated group.
It is.
It's also pretty much a law and order kind of group, so I think you're right that they're probably more likely to hand out a death penalty than others will. And given the aggravating nature of what Hasan did, a death penalty sentence is fairly likely in this case.
Well, and you bring up that aggravated. There does have to be something more to make this than the death penalty, and aggravated in that multiple deaths.
Multiple deaths, there's a number of different factors.
Right.
Matter of fact, when the jury first decides is what they have to do is, before they vote on the sentence, they have to vote on whether certain aggravating factors are present, like if it was damage to national security, there were multiple deaths, he caused pain and suffering to some of the victims, and there's about 11 different factors that they have to find at least one of those present, and that has to be a unanimous vote for that aggravating factor. Once they find that, then they vote on the sentence.
Do you think, in his mind, not I guess what any of us think, in his mind, in Hasan's mind, that he is coming out a martyr in all this, especially if he's given the death penalty?
I think based on what we've seen, absolutely. He thinks he's a martyr.
Yeah. And then looking forward then to the next phase, you think then we might hear more from him?
We might. I think it's going to be all or nothing. Either he's going to say nothing at all, or he's going to get the chance to kind of take the podium and say what he's been wanting to say the whole trial.
All right. Well, we'll wait and see then what happens on that. Colby, we really appreciate you coming in.
As always.
As always, thank you so much.